Coffee with Doc from Ageless Forever would like to always add this disclaimer. The information provided by this podcast, Coffee with Doc, is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice. It is not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have read or heard from our podcast. Reliance on any information provided by this podcast is solely at your own risk. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Coffee with Doc. You might notice we're doing this in a little different format. We're in my office, actually. And I actually have a friend of mine, Carmen, coming in all the way from Alberta, Canada. Now, for us Golden Knight fans, we'll tolerate her because she is coming from enemy territory. However, what we want to talk about today is DNA testing. Carmen has a company that she's been developing and working on for some years now, and has really gotten pretty deep into the DNA testing. So I'm going to just open it up to Carmen now to tell us a little bit more about DNA testing.
Thank you. So we opened our lab in 2008 in Canada. We were one of the very first ever to open a sequencing company, and our focus was to make actionable programs on a unique individual's DNA. So this would eliminate a lot of time and guesswork and money for that matter. So when somebody gets their DNA tested, they use this Q-tip, which could be mailed anywhere in the world. So it's convenient and accessible. And they get all of this information in this book. So what this includes is...
Well, wait a second, because you're a little fast here, right? So I know the answer to this question, but maybe a lot of people don't. Where is this Q-tip being placed?
On the inside of your cheek. So it's a 10-second cheek swab.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about it going in any other orifice and making you uncomfortable.
Good point.
All right.
Right. So this package includes a lot. There's a whole bunch of information on diet, health, which includes methylation genes, detoxification genes, hormonal regulation, inflammatory and immune. And it also includes a lot to do with fitness genes. So things like if you've ever wondered how your ligaments and tendons work with heavy lifting, sprint and power genes, energy availability as far as like how your body uses energy while you're training. So that could really help somebody understand if they need an intra-carb workout drink or not.
Oh, okay.
So there's really a lot of information in there as far as muscle recovery, so you could design your programs a little bit better, muscle fatigue, and such, as much as stroke and cardiovascular disease as well.
Okay, so it looks at your potential for developing stroke, cardiovascular abnormalities like plaque buildup in the coronary arteries. Mm-hmm. So we know that like homocysteine, as that builds up, that's a methylation issue, right? And so high homocysteine levels are associated with increased risk of dementia and stroke,
right,
and coronary artery disease or cardiovascular disease. So, but the stroke and the dementia, those are really supported by the science.
They really are, and to bring that point up, I'm glad you did, because we do test Alzheimer's, concussion, we test depression genes, we test cortisol levels. So that's all in another area of this booklet under the brain power.
Okay, so like when you say you test for concussion, like the DNA isn't going to tell you if you have a concussion or had one, but it would tell you your susceptibility to problems after traumatic brain injury?
Yeah, it goes into an area of understanding for the individual of maybe some people are more prone to getting head concussions and the ability to recover from it.
Okay.
So if somebody has that gene, they would want to take more care. For example, we don't want to be a dream killer and say you can't play hockey.
Right.
We would say, but we want to buy the best helmet. And if we do get a head concussion, we want to make sure we're taking every single protocol we can for proper recovery.
Okay. So that makes sense, right? I love the idea of having information at your fingertips that you can design your workout program as opposed to trial and error.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people, they may have a desire to train as a strongman. Mm-hmm. And they can still do that, but it might not be the most beneficial training for that individual. For strength muscle size recovery and things of that nature. Is that fair to say?
Very fair. Everybody can always reach their goals. It's just sometimes we have to go about it a little different. So some people will need more rest time, for example. Some people won't. So they can hit the gym way more often and not get injured, for example. Whereas the next guy comes along and he gets injured right away just simply because he's not recovering quick enough. So this goes into great detail as to how you can design the best program to optimize your results.
Very good.
Yeah. The diet is great. So we go into the one that really sticks out for me in this because of my bodybuilding background is, do you need a high protein diet or not?
Okay.
And for us bodybuilders, we were always thinking we always need a high protein diet, and that's not necessarily the case. Are healthy fats good for you or not? Are they going to cause inflammatory? So we do need a certain amount of fats, but in some cases, you got to be a little more cautious.
Okay.
And same with carbohydrates. And we test the insulin genes as well. So that is such a cool thing to see, is that insulin area. And so it'll help people to understand their bodies, like insulin regulation, and kind of, do you need more brown rice or white rice? Or do you need to eat more fast-acting carbs? And how often should you eat? Fasting is a huge thing right now.
Right.
So this can help you answer that. And
how well it may or may not work for you.
That's right.
Because, I mean, we all know there's how many different fad diets, and they come and go.
Yeah.
And some look really great. I mean, to me, when people ask me, I'm a big fan of like a modified Mediterranean diet. Mm-hmm. Right? I think, just in general terms, cutting down the carbs, focusing on, some fruits, mostly berries, vegetables, good protein source, and good healthy fats. But that might not be the best for a particular individual, and they may do better with something different. And this would show, kind of a way to
adjust.
Path.
Absolutely. And I think everybody's starting to put more effort into their diet. They want to know. I read a stat a long time ago, and it was something like, by the time a woman's 55 years old, she's tried 165 different diets, and she's still overweight, not feeling well, and she still doesn't know what to eat.
Okay.
So I think that this can give people confidence to stick to it as well. So they're not just constantly jumping from one thing to the next. We also test obesity genes in here, which I think is very good for a lot of people, because a lot of people think because maybe their parents are big or their whole family's big, and then we look at their DNA and they're like, well, you don't really have obesity genes.
Okay. So this can really help to delineate the difference between nature and nurture.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that when I talk with patients, they say, well, everybody in my family is obese, right? And you go, okay, but is that because that eating habit has been passed down from generation to generation? So how do and then when you delve into it, and in a lot of cases, everybody's eating way too much or too late or whatever the case may be. And they're like, and it's really not the obesity. Here's where I really hear it. Everybody in my family is diabetic. Yeah. And then I go into, well, they're type 1 or type 2. Oh, type 2. And the data, as far as the last I've understood it to be, is about 95% of type 2 diabetics are because of lifestyle choices,
without it,
as opposed to a genetic predisposition.
Yeah.
Right? And then there are, 5% that can diet, exercise, do everything perfectly, mm-hmm. and still have to be treated for type 2 diabetes. Very similar to hypertension. Mm-hmm. Does this test look into your risk for hypertension? Mm-hmm. So it could basically tell us if somebody has more of a propensity for what's called essential hypertension, meaning that they absolutely, no matter what they do, they have to be on a medication.
Yeah, that is an area that we look at. And the interesting thing about that is that in the insulin area, we do test the diabetic genes. So from a younger age, the more that people can get this test done, if they have those genes for diabetes, then they're going to have a much better direction as to how important they have to diet to mm-hmm. not get diabetes. So it can give people a little bit of a nudge to say, hey, you're that candidate. but here's the information. So knowledge is power. And once you know better, we hope we all do better.
Yeah.
So it could help really prevent a lot of disease. And DNA, that's what it's all about, is how do we prevent disease? Like blood work's great, scans are great, and all this stuff is really good. But DNA is such a level deeper to say, let's hope we don't see that showing up in the blood work. Yeah, and it's all about turning on your genetics, supporting your weak genes. So when I'm reading DNA, in the back, we showcase like your actual, what your mom and dad gave you. I see these little potholes. And so those are the ones I go to right away and say, these are the big potholes. We got to like supplement. We got to support them. How do we support these weak genes? So bringing up supplementation, knowing what vitamins will support your DNA before you have a problem. Say, oh, I'm low in vitamin D, or I'm low in this or that. This showcases very directly and very clearly what kind of vitamins your DNA needs from a very young age.
Okay.
And that is huge for children, because children during developmental stages, they are more mutated and have more variants than, say, us.
Right.
They're going to need more support.
Well, and they're developing, right?
Exactly.
We really want to support what they're weak.
So if you know that like the Flintstone vitamin's not going to cut it for Johnny, then you say, okay, what are we going to do? Because this is what we need to figure out a solution for.
Okay, now, and I mean, I had done my testing some years ago, so it looks like you've enhanced the scope of data that you're giving, because I don't remember my report being so voluminous.
Well,
right?
A lot of it is there. You got yours delivered in the back-end portal. So if you printed it, it would be pretty, So it's pretty easy to read. Like it's green and red. Good genes, bad genes. And then it gives you a full-page report on what does this mean? What does vitamin E actually do?
Okay.
Why is it important? What genes are we testing?
Now, if I recall, because we've had some conversations over the years, does this also help people understand their susceptibility or increased likelihood to be a benefit for a particular medication? I thought that was...
I didn't bring it with me, but we have another test, and that goes into all the pharmacogenetics, from anything from aspirin, Advil, Tylenol, immunological drugs to antidepressants. Many drugs are in there. Now, the thing about a drug is that a lot of times it acutely will say, get rid of the ear infection. So we give a little child a Tylenol and it gets rid of the earache. But what that Tylenol could be doing is turning down DNA regulation in all these other areas where it's a half moderate like this, or like this for mom and dad. And we don't realize that that's what we're doing. So it's really critical that we understand, is that vitamin, is that drug, is that food helping us, harming us, or doing nothing for us? Because we don't feel it. And we learned, well, as coaches, we were like, how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? We're, and a lot of times you can't feel how those things are actually, well, you don't feel them, how they're affecting your DNA for your future. And that's ultimately what this is really all about, is just more insights to help us make better decisions that we can't feel and see.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
In a lot of these cases, I mean, some of the things that we do with lab work is to, try to be as proactive as possible, but a lot of the times the process has already started. Yeah. And so now you've got some insight to maybe head the process off before it begins. Yeah. It's kind of like cancer, right? So people would say, well, I have the BRCA mutation, so I'm at high risk of breast cancer, and I shuddered when I heard a famous Hollywood actress say, well, I have the mutation, I'm just going to go ahead and have my breasts removed so I don't get breast cancer. And I thought, well, that's interesting. What if she had the DNA and the risk factor for brain cancer? Would she have had her brain removed to prevent brain cancer? Well, and I'm being facetious, but as a physician, I actually had some patients come to me and ask me about that, and I thought, I did respond like that, because I was like, okay, so if you had a predisposition for brain cancer, would you cut your head off? You're never going to get cancer ever again, right? And that's completely facetious, and it was kind of downplaying their fear, and that probably wasn't the best thing. But the reality of it is, even though you have a predisposition for it, there are things that you can do. So obviously, lead a non-cancer risk factor lifestyle. So sugar is one of the biggest things. People that allow their blood sugars to spike or to stay high even being pre-diabetic, forget diabetes. I mean, diabetes in and of itself, there's 2 to 3-fold increased risk for all types of cancer.
Yeah.
So if you have a genetic predisposition, you're increasing your risk. Then you go, oh, I abuse alcohol, I smoke, I don't exercise. Well, yeah, you're really increasing your risk. But if you know that you have that genetic predisposition and you do all the right things, you're actually decreasing your risk.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I think this is wonderful to have that information.
I wish we knew that, lady, back then, because I could have said, hey, let's look at how your body fights cancer. Because it's not just the one thing. What about all the other things we're going to be up against? Like, there's going to be a lot of little potholes that we hit in life, not just breast cancer. So let's get the body as functional as possible to fight all disease.
Right.
And that's what we're really focused on, is being super actionable about getting the body as optimal as possible to be our best. And
no, I mean, that's the idea of integrative wellness. It's kind of using nutraceuticals and kind of using the things that I see in labs to kind of optimize. But then this takes it a step further, because I might not see a lab abnormality and overlook something that they could benefit from.
Yeah,
right?
you know, John, in here, it helps a lot of people to go down a different rabbit hole too. Like, sometimes as a physician or a coach or a practitioner, you kind of like are trialing, doing all this testing. You're like, hey, let's try this. Now let's try this. Now this. This could actually point out and say, well, this guy is a real big risk for hemochromatosis. Let's do that test right now. So you could eliminate a ton of different testing and just probably nail it.
Right. And then, then our treatment recommendations wouldn't be kind of like, that would eliminate 2 or 3 different testosterone options I might offer and say, okay, this one's going to be the safest.
That's right.
To mitigate that, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of times that went missed a lot. Like, I know for years I've seen lots of hemochromatosis, and it was just not really a big thing. Like 20 years ago, nobody really knew about it. And I was putting my hand up saying, well, go get this test.
Well, I mean, we, as in the testosterone replacement therapy, it's not hemochromatosis it's secondary erythrocytosis. And those are 2 different entities.
Yeah.
And so you could theoretically, somebody who you think is secondary erythrocytosis and it's actually hemochromatosis, you misdiagnose that, and you could be sending them down the wrong pathway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think this would help to alleviate that concern. So let's talk about, so now, how do people go about getting this swab? And so you're going to have people that are interested in this and say, hey, this is something I want to do. Now, you're based out of Canada.
Yeah.
Right?
So there's swabs here. We're leaving them at your office.
Okay.
So people can come right into your office and order it right from here.
Okay.
And if you have clients in, let's say, Ireland, and you're working with them, either you can ship a test from your office out to them, or we can for you. So we can ship worldwide.
Oh, that's beautiful. And then from there, they get this, they put it in the mail, it goes back to Canada?
Yeah.
How long does it take before they get results?
Right now, our turnaround time is 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. That's typical. I mean, generally when we do blood labs, it takes that long because the labs and reagents and things of that nature. So that's not a bad thing. Then, all right, so they have the results.
Yeah.
They get the book. Who's going over the... I think I know the answer, and then it becomes a rate-limiting step.
Well, hopefully Amanda here at your office will be doing that with all the people coming in through Ageless Forever. But we are set up to support you guys anytime. So as Amanda's getting trained as a DNA practitioner, DNA coach, then I will be there. Our office will be there to support her in any questions that she has until she gets comfortable with all the information.
Okay. And I think there's probably something that I myself and my other practitioners could glean from some of this training as well, so that we're able to look at it and have a good idea. And then the way I like to do things is it's a collaborative approach with everybody in the office working together to get the best results for the patient. So,
yeah, it's definitely been really beneficial for me. Before I got into DNA testing, I was a trainer, and I was always saying there's got to be a better approach. And we were just doing a lot of guesswork. So this could enhance trainers and coaches very easily. I think a lot of people think that, oh, it's DNA testing, I don't know genetics, and they think it's going to be so hard to implement into their business.
Right.
And we've worked so hard to make this so digestible that people just actionable plans, just know what to do to take from it. So you don't have to be super smart to get some information out of this at all.
And be able to put into action
Tomorrow.
almost immediately.
Yeah,
Okay.
like tomorrow in the kitchen, you're going to be like,
important.
oh yeah, oh, I'm going to the vitamin store, I know what to do. Or I'm going to the gym, so I know better what to do. And if they don't know nutrition, they don't know working out that much, then yeah, they need a coach to help them to still build a program, because this cannot tell you how many almonds to eat, because it doesn't know your goal today. This is what you're born with.
Right.
So it doesn't know if you want to gain weight, lose weight, if you want to, what you're doing.
Okay.
So this is why it still takes somebody with some knowledge to say, well, you're supposed to eat like 10 almonds at meal 6. That's,
Okay.
or maybe it's 20.
Right. Just
But what
depending on
this
what the
does
goal
say is whether or not healthy fats, like unsaturated fats, are going to be very beneficial for you or not.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 questions I have. One, you enlightened me to a concern that some consumers may have with doing this test, with the potential availability of their DNA. Once they do this test, they send their DNA out. Now it's out there.
Yeah,
right?
that's come back a lot, and we've been in business for so long, and we're in Canada. I'm like, oh, but it's us. We're honest company, honest people, but people that don't know us don't know that.
Right.
So people are concerned about what happens to their DNA once it's done. Is it being sold? What's happening to it? So we pride ourselves on being private and destroying the DNA as soon as it's done.
So no fear for your personal information getting out into the neither worlds or whatever, right? So, obviously you've been doing this for some time, and, I hate to assume, but I feel very confident that you've already done this testing on yourself, right?
Yeah.
How's it changed your approach for you as an individual?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Well, as an athlete, I was a pro figure skater, pro hockey, and then got into pro bodybuilding. And all those years, I was taught to eat tons of carbs and high protein. And I'm quite opposite. I'm high fats and low protein.
Oh, really?
And I get big.
Okay.
I get a lot of energy from that. My body doesn't get inflamed from that.
Now, let's clarify, when you say you get big and lean.
Yes,
Right?
that's right.
Some people get big and it ain't
That's true.
right.
Yeah, I can gain muscle on that, and that's the cool part about being a bodybuilder is I get to trial and error all this stuff because I'm very diligent on how we eat, how we train, and what we're doing, and it's phenomenal for me to see gaining that kind of size on low carbs and low protein.
Right. And people that don't know you had undergone serious trauma when you were younger.
Yeah.
Right. So that some people could use that as a crutch not to be active and to kind of, to sit around and exist. And you did the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So you were driven to improve yourself as an individual, and then you take this information on top of it and it just, right?
Yeah, and I will say mentally too, there's a lot of points in here. We go into depression, we go into cortisol, we go into addiction genes. And so for me, that's been really beneficial for me to keep my head really nice and clear too on, doing big business and being a professional athlete, being busy and understanding what supplements and what to do to keep my moods correct and everything. And so it's not just a physical thing, it really helped me emotionally and mentally as well.
Now, I want to get a little bit more touchy-feely now, right? So, because I do have insight, we've known each other for some years.
Yeah.
And you actually help somebody very near and dear to you, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, it was my sister, my youngest sister. She was born with rheumatoid arthritis, and she got addicted to pain meds when she was 11 years old. And by the age of 13, she was a full-blown addict and just having severe troubles in all areas of her life. So she was in and out of rehabs over 50 times, detoxes. She's literally died a few times, been brought back to life with the Narcan shot, or I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yep.
And I even had RCMP in Canada phone me, and he just went on and on and on because he was the one that picked up my sister, and he cannot believe that she survived. Like she was dead, he said. And he just said, Carmen, your sister must have a purpose because I've never seen anything like this. Mm-hmm. Anyways, time goes on, and she comes to my place, and we do the DNA protocols on her, the DNA information, and I do her detox and rehabilitation program, coming off of heroin and other street drugs, of course, and all sorts of things. And she sobered up, and she was sober for 2.5 years and no cravings, and it was all because I knew how to detox her. I could see pathways of why her brain was relapsing. Mm-hmm. I could see why she was having trouble with, again, going in and out of detox and rehab, like over and over. She would get clean and then relapse, get clean, go all in this circle, right? So my goal actually now moving forward isn't so much in the bodybuilding community, it's in the addiction and depression, mental illness area, of applying protocols that are very specific to the individual to understand where their DNA is almost unplugged from birth. And that's what we can see in here is, like, why are they struggling so much? And if they want to get better, this has worked every time. I actually just had a girl come in for 30 days, mm-hmm. same story, 4 days in. And my goal isn't just to get them off the drug or alcohol, it's to stop the craving so mm-hmm. that they're not living in a prison their whole life, because that would suck. Yeah. Like, how do you help with these cravings? And 4 days into it, again, she came from one of the biggest rehabs in all of Canada, and within 4 days on her plan, she had no cravings since.
And for your sister, it's been 2.5 years she's been clean and sober?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And doing well, right?
And doing well, yeah.
Turned her life around, has become, I hate to use the term, but more of a productive member of society when that wasn't the case before.
That's right? Yeah. It was phenomenal.
Taking care of a child now. Right, this is beautiful.
And the whole thing is like, food is really that powerful? And that's what I keep saying, like, is it really this powerful? And like, yes, it is.
Food is medicine.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we could go on, and unfortunately I'm restricted by a little time, but this has been an absolute pleasure. Folks, thank you for sitting in with us. And if you're interested in having your DNA tested and getting a program designed specifically for you with even more information and guidance for us to follow, please give us a call at Ageless Forever, 702-838-1994, or go to our website, www.agelessforever.net, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you.